case of incipient verbal diarrhea.
You don't run this deposition, you understand?
Do you, Joe?
You watch and see who does.
That ain't your goddamn job,
That's not
fat
your
boy.
job.
What do you want to do about it?
Oh, I'd like to knock you on your ass.
Come
I'm
try
not
it.
gonna do that.
Come over here and try it, you
Wait a minute.
dumb son of a...
Wait just a second.
Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber. I do these things called vlogs, VLAWGS. And by the way, my mother made this.
My mother?
Oh boy, that's a Freudian slip that might have to stay in this video. My wife made me this for
Mother's Day.
What's wrong with me? For Father's Day. I have not properly explained the difference between trademark and trademark pending to my wife. The trademark is pending. I have not yet gotten the trademark for this vlog, but
I'll get it.
Vlogs where we break down and analyze something that's going on in the news in terms that can be understood by lawyers and non-lawyers alike. These might be the greatest excerpts from a deposition I have ever seen in my entire life. It is, from a Canadian perspective, so typically, stereotypically, humorously, comedically Texan that if you made a comedy about what the practice of law is like in Texas, this is how it would play out verbatim. Okay, we're gonna break down this deposition bit, at least the sections that we can find off the internet, because we can definitely learn something from them, but first and foremost, we need to know what's going on in this lawsuit. For those of you who are as old as I am and have been around since the advent of the internet, you might remember a website called eBaum's World, which is where this deposition tidbit first went viral 12 plus years ago now. And very few people actually know what the context of this deposition was, what the lawsuit was, who the attorneys were, who this person was.
What on earth is going on in this deposition that led to this hilarious insanity?
At the time this deposition was conducted, which was in fact in 1992, I do believe this was the largest toxic dump lawsuit in American history. And the context of the lawsuit is that a number of chemical companies were dumping toxic waste in these neighborhoods in Texas, poisoning the children, making people sick, reducing property value to the point where people couldn't sell their property to get out of the areas in which they lived that were poisoned by chemicals. One of the chemical companies that was a defendant to the lawsuit was Monsanto. And from what I can tell, this is the expert witness for Monsanto, or one of the defendant chemical companies, being examined by plaintiff's attorney who was one Joseph Jamail. Joseph Jamail at one point was the richest litigator in American history, worth something like $1.5 billion. Jamail was referred to as the king of torts, and he made the better part of his wealth in a lawsuit where he represented Pennzoil, and he bagged a whopping $335 million as a contingency fee because he was working on contingency in that lawsuit, where apparently they won for $10 billion and ultimately settled for $3 billion, out of which he got $335 million as a paycheck.
Absolute madness.
But that's what the legal landscape is like in America. In this particular lawsuit, Joe Jamail is representing some of the plaintiffs who are suing multiple chemical companies for having made their children sick, for having polluted the neighborhood, for having reduced property value to the point where they can't even get out of the toxic dump sites to live a healthy and ordinary life. He is examining an expert witness who is testifying for and on behalf of the defendant, and this is where things go awry. And although Joe Jamail was massively successful as an attorney, his conduct was in fact sanctioned or criticized by the courts. A Delaware court on its own motion, meaning nobody actually petitioned them to look at Joe Jamail's conduct, pulled some of the transcripts from depositions of other files in which Joe Jamail was counsel, and referred to his conduct as, and I'm quoting, rude, uncivil, and vulgar, abusing the privilege of representing a witness in a Delaware proceeding, displaying an astonishing lack of professionalism and civility, outrageous, unacceptable. And what was Joe Jamail's response? I'd rather have a nose on my ass than go to Delaware for any reason. And now that we know a little bit about Joe Jamail's conduct as an attorney, we can see what goes on in this particular examination.
Go off the record.
Did you talk to this man sitting next to you before this deposition started?
Yesterday, but he had nothing to do
I didn't ask you that.
Did you I said it, though, didn't I? I said it, though, didn't I?
Alright, so what's happening now is Joe Jamail is asking the expert witness if he met with this guy to his left, who is presumably the lawyer for one of the parties to the lawsuit. And an important thing to understand is that a lawyer to the party in a lawsuit is not necessarily the attorney to the witness being deposed, and even more so, not the attorney of the expert witness. And so Joe Jamail is asking the witness if he met with this attorney yesterday. Ordinarily, that question would be objectionable on the basis of solicitor-client privilege, except the expert witness in this particular case is not the client of the attorney who is present at the examination, so the question is in fact permissible. And just to flesh this out a little bit, lawyers will typically ask a witness if they have met with their attorney or if they have prepared with their attorney. It is an objectionable question. It breaches solicitor-client privilege. It is none of the examining attorney's business whether or not a client has met with their attorney, what was discussed, when they met, how long they met for. The question is permissible in this circumstance because the expert witness is not being represented by the counsel, so there is no solicitor-client privilege between the expert witness and the attorney to his side. And the expert witness knows exactly where Jamail is going with this question. Jamail is asking the question to imply or suggest or to get at whether or not there has been any influence between the attorney and the expert witness, any coaching, any suggestions as to what the witness should say, how they should frame their testimony. And Jamail asks the question, did you meet with this attorney yesterday? To which he responds yes, and then starts to qualify his answer, explain what they discussed, say that it didn't have an impact on whatever.
But he had nothing to do
I
with
didn't
what
ask
you
you
were
that.
currently saying. I said it though, didn't I?
At which point Jamail cuts him off saying, I didn't ask you that, not to let the witness qualify the answer. The only answer Jamail wanted was, yes, I met with that attorney. Jamail is going to go on with his questions. And ordinarily you're not supposed to interrupt a witness when they are in the midst of answering a question, except this is a hostile witness, and the lawyer can treat this witness as a hostile witness. And I mean hostile witness not in demeanor, not as in this is a mean, hostile, aggressive witness. It means that this is a witness for the adverse party, so their interests are opposed to the interests of the client of the attorney asking the question. So you can, in practice, treat this witness a little differently. You can cut them off and not let them give you self-serving answers to questions that haven't been asked yet. Jamail asked a question, did you meet with this attorney? His answer is yes or no. He'll get into the follow-up questions that he thinks are relevant afterwards, and let's just see where this goes, even though we know where this is going.
What'd you say?
I said nothing. I said you have a case of incipient verbal diarrhea.
Hey Siri, what is the definition of incipient?
Incipient means beginning to happen or develop.
Beginning to happen or develop verbal diarrhea. Okay, let's keep going.
Oh, sir, we're going to see about that.
By the way, if I ever hear a Texas attorney say to me, we're going to see about that, okay, this is fantastic.
Talk about this case?
Yes.
Did you tell him the other companies you consulted for?
No, I did.
You're under oath here.
You're under oath here. How many times in my breakdowns of depositions am I going to tell you that attorneys use this as a bullying, intimidation tactic of the witness? You're under oath here. First of all, something tells me that it is not this expert witness's first time at the rodeo. This guy knows that he's under oath and he knows what depositions are about. But that whole tactic to remind the witness that they're under oath, that lying constitutes perjury, etc., it works on a novice witness. It does not work on an expert witness, and it does not work on a seasoned witness. And in fact, it won't really work on any witness that has been adequately prepped by their attorney, because I tell every witness before they get into examination, the lawyer is going to do this, he's going to say that in an attempt to intimidate you.
When you were at Monsanto, what was your title?
Research chemist.
And was that your title during your entire stay at Texas City?
City, yes.
Don't talk over each other.
Okay, and now we hear who is presumably a lawyer in the back saying don't talk over each other, and we've touched on this in previous depositions. The deposition is being recorded by a stenographer. In the States, for some reason, they also video record them, and they're going to transcribe the deposition. They're going to make a transcript, like type up the actual words that were spoken on pieces of paper. And if the lawyer and the witness, or the witnesses or the lawyers are talking over each other, it becomes very difficult to put in a transcript who is saying what when. Sometimes when you're listening to it, you don't know which lawyer is saying what. You don't know if the witness is saying something versus the lawyer, and it becomes totally convoluted. So we hear this person in the back who has not yet spoken in the context of this deposition saying, guys, stop speaking over each other. Let's just see where this goes.
After you left Texas City...
Wait a minute, let me ask a question here.
Yeah.
You represent this guy or not?
Who are you?
My name's Tucker, and I represent Ayrshire, and I just want to know if you represent the guy or not. I'm getting, if you don't represent him, you don't have any right to be making any objection.
All right, so it's not Jamail who's intervening right now. It's another attorney for presumably one of the other defendants asking this lawyer if he represents the witness. And the argument being that if the lawyer doesn't represent the witness, he has no business intervening, objecting, or saying anything in the context of the deposition. And he's not entirely wrong, but he's not entirely right. Typically, a witness is represented by counsel, who will object, who will intervene as necessary if they feel the questions are unfair, invasive, objectionable, etc. But that is not to say that someone who is attending an examination who has an interest in the lawsuit but is not representing the witness is prohibited from objecting. At least under Quebec law, and I presume it's the same elsewhere, any party to the suit with an interest in what is going on has an interest to object if they feel the questions are objectionable. They still have to abide by the rules of procedure as relates to the objections, but they are entitled to object because they are a party to the suit and they have an interest in the outcome of the questions being asked. If the questions are objectionable, it doesn't matter if the party is representing the witness, they are entitled to object, and a judge will adjudicate on the objections.
If you do represent him, tell us so.
Why don't you keep your mouth shut? I'll do what I want.
No, you're not going to do what you want. No, you're
No,
not.
you're not.
Yeah, I am.
That's
I'll
bullshit.
make whatever objections I want to make, and I'll make them as loud as I want to make them. Or you just shut your mouth and we'll keep the record straight.
That escalated quickly. I mean, it's hilarious.
You just shut your mouth and we'll keep the record straight.
Don't tell me to shut my mouth, boy. It may be big, but you want to see how bad you are? Come on.
You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. You could make this stuff up, and no one would believe it. They would say it's too unrealistic and preposterous.
You want to see how bad you are? Come on.
And I wouldn't try that, Ed. Are you threatening to fight? Are you threatening to fight?
Are you threatening to fight?
Can you imagine an expert witness in a multi-$100 million lawsuit asking the attorneys if they are threatening to fight?
Hold on just a second.
Oh, I want to know whose side we're on. We're going to be outnumbered, Ed.
Hold on just a second.
No, you got a big mouth. Now you do. You need to either represent the man or not.
I'm
I've tolerated
representing Monsanto, and I'm making
you're
an
not-
objection on the record.
All right, so now it becomes a little bit more clear. The attorney who is objecting to the questions being asked to the expert witness is representing Monsanto, which presumably means that this expert witness is an expert for another party to the suit, but one of the defendants, possibly Monsanto. I'm not sure enough about these details. But the attorney is representing Monsanto, and as an attorney to a defendant in the lawsuit, has an interest in objecting to questions if he finds them objectionable in the context of the examination. It's not because he's not representing this particular witness that he is prohibited from objecting to objectionable questions. To go from there to telling another attorney to shut their mouth, I mean, this is madness. It's absolute madness.
Okay?
I'm representing the man.
Then you're not entitled to be his lawyer then, okay?
I'm not representing the man.
Well, you're
I'm
trying to
making
be.
an objection on the
And
record.
another thing,
Tell me
you
what
don't.
I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you something else. You don't run this deposition. You understand?
To you, Joe.
You watch and see. You watch and see who does, big boy.
Big boy. And wagging his finger. I mean, this is actually art.
I'm telling you, Joe.
Oh, you ain't telling me a goddamn thing.
Whatever objections I want.
You just make your objections and keep
talk as loud
quiet.
as you
See?
want. No,
But don't
I'm
be telling another lawyer to shut up.
Don't be
That
telling
ain't your
me to shut
goddamn
up.
job,
No, that's not
fat
your
boy.
job.
Do you see the jaw on the expert witness literally drops when Jamail calls the other attorney fat boy? I mean, it literally drops.
As I said before, you have an incipient bad. What do you want to do about it?
What are you going to do about it? This is in the context of a deposition that a judge is going to watch. A judge is going to ask, what was accomplished with all of this? What information did you succeed in obtaining that is going to assist in the furtherance of your client's lawsuit? Now, there was an outcome to this lawsuit that I think was absolutely independent of the manner in which this deposition was conducted, and we'll get there, so let's just finish off with this deposition because it gets worse before it gets better.
Oh, I'd like to knock you on your head. Come try it. Come over here and try it, you
Wait a minute.
dumb son of a...
Wait just a second.
Come over here.
Can you see this is that expert witness made Jamail flinch, and you can see it. The expert witness lunges, and you can see Jamail's hand get up from the table as he backs away, thinking that this expert witness is going to lunge at him. Now, this might have been part of the strategy the entire time. Get an expert to attack the lawyer during an examination, and it will look badly on the defendant. That being said, there might be circumstances in the context of this deposition that, even if that were the strategy, would be attenuating circumstances that might explain why an otherwise professional expert lost his temper with an examining attorney. Okay, I think that's as bad as it gets before it ends, but let's see.
Hold on. Hold it. Hey, wait a minute. Hold on. No way.
Get
Hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on just a second.
Associate of taking Mr. Garrett out in the hall to lecture him, I suppose. They're doing this over our objection. We started this deposition, unable to get an answer from this man.
All right, and thus ends the most hilarious deposition I have seen to date. Ultimately, the lawsuit did settle. It settled for over $207 million. Barney, come here. Your snorting in the back is going to lead people to believe that I am making odd noises. Come up here. Oh, yeah, here he is, boy. Here he is. Oh, gosh. Okay, hold on. This is the Vlawg dog.
Vlawg dog.
Coming soon on a shirt near you. Mwah. It settled for over $207 million. Apparently there were 6 chemical companies that contributed to the settlement, and Monsanto contributed the greatest amount, nearly $40 million. And the settlement was to compensate the victims who had fallen ill, to pay for the college tuition of 700 students, and to buy back the properties that had not only become worthless, but had actually become liabilities because they required environmental cleanups. So despite the conduct of the attorneys in this examination, the file still settled, and settled quite favorably for the plaintiffs, if you can talk about a favorable settlement under such circumstances. After the settlement was approved by a judge, Jamail was reported to have said, how can anyone be happy under such circumstances when there are sick children and people who are going to be suffering for the rest of their lives? That is the breakdown of the deposition. If you like my content, you like my channel, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share my channel with anybody who will listen and help me grow. I greatly appreciate it. And now you know your vlog. Peace out. Boom!